Jesus Christ. This is the second episode I have had to start of Confidently Insecure with a deep breath. Oh, God. Confidence. My confidence. Just, whew. Give me a second here. Okay, so this is definitely the closest I've ever recorded an episode to the time at which it's supposed to come out. So it's like 9:15 p.m. on a Sunday, and this is supposed to be released in a few hours from now. But quite a few things have gotten in the way this week of getting this episode done. One is that I was going to have an episode about climate change or the election, or even I was last minute trying to get an interview with a PhD in viruses because I wanted to talk about viruses and stigma around that. And then a pain flare, the worst I've had in 2 years, just came right up and fucked me in the ass because of a root canal I had to have on Wednesday of last week. And, you know, I'd had a root canal before on the right side because I guess my teeth are just trash bins, I guess. Didn't realize I had such shit teeth. So I had a root canal on the right side. This time I had to have one on the left side. Right side went off smoothly, no problems. But the left side, and I think that's probably because where I have a lot more of the nerve damage, it really just, whoo, Lord. So it kind of put a damper on my plans this week. It kind of fucked up my Valentine's Day plans with my boyfriend, La DJ Kap Slap, Jared Lucas, who I've got sitting next to me making noise.
How's that?
Great. So we tried to record this once, and we had to stop for a reason I will explain. But the first time I introduced him, he went, hey, guys.
Hey, guys, what's up?
That was the noise he made. I was like, really? That's all right.
I picked a better noise.
So I've got DJ Kap Slap Lucas here because we are going to talk to him in a little bit. But I'm glad I told this story about the root canal because it kind of pertains to what this episode is about. But then, so my pain flare was so bad, it ruined our little Valentine's Day plans a little bit. And then Saturday, we tried to make it up by going to see a movie. And the flare was so bad, had to walk out of the movie, which I'm not too mad about because don't look at me, okay? Look, you guys know I am a feminasty, okay? I literally have a neon sign of a woman's butt on right behind me. However, I did not, and you can quote me, okay? This is on God, as the children on TikTok say. I did not think the Harley Quinn movie was that great. I was gonna say hold for gasps.
No holding on that one. That's
you just
came right
gasp. Listen. Was the cinematography beautiful? Yes. Is Margot Robbie a national treasure and a gem? Absolutely. Rocking your foot against the table.
Oops.
Is the cast badass? Do we need more female superhero? But yes, all that stuff does not take away from the fact that just kind of not the most likable hero's journey I've ever seen. It was a lot of fight scenes, which, unless you're in fight scenes, man, that's about half the movie. And it was so stereotypically a superhero movie. It just is like good guys fighting bad guys. Good gals, I should say, fighting bad guys in this. And it's just, listen, I walked out because of the pain, so maybe that had something to do with it. Maybe it was more of an impression of how my pain was coming out as a movie. But we'll also talk about that when we talk to Kap Slap DJ. So that ruined our plans Saturday. And then today, it's just been an absolute shit show. I didn't get any sleep last night. And finally, I said, fuck it. We're going to see my healer / acupuncturist, So P. And he got me in late night. So finally, I just got some acupuncture done. I am still in some pain, but he actually stuck these stickers in me. And if you've never seen these before, they are tiny, tiny, tiny surgical steel needles that are it's like a Band-Aid, but it has a needle in the middle, and you stick them on little pressure points, and throughout the day you can just kind of press on it. And so what OP, my acupuncturist, does is he'll put them on little trigger points, and Then you leave the Band-Aid on for as long as it sticks. You know, when you get it wet, it comes off eventually. But you can kind of just like, press in and like, you just get a little like, a little crack of acupuncture. Good feeling. So we went and did that. All that to say, my dear confidants, is that the energy from your girl might be a little low. One, because I'm so afraid to mess with the flare. Like, I don't want to undo all of the dids I just did with the acupuncture. So I'm trying to keep my facial expressions to a minimum. And I'm trying not to accentuate my words too much.
Just keep your mouth very, very still. Talk like a New Yorker over here.
Yeah, it's kind of like I just had a Botox, a whole bunch of Botox.
A lot of Botox.
Yeah. So again, I'm sorry if this is kind of a shorter episode, but I'm gonna do as much as my body will allow, because if there's anything I know about my confidants, it's that they understand that you gotta come first in your life. You, dear listener / watcher. And then on top of that, I just got actually the reason why we had to stop recording the first episode take and had to restart was because about 10 minutes in, I just got some horrifying news. I mean, I don't really know how to talk about this because it literally just happened, and we took a moment to pause and reflect, and I kind of talked because I felt like that's what I do best, is I talk through my feelings, and then we saved that, and I said we just need to start over and like redo, and Jared was like, yeah, I think you need to like process for a second. But I just got some horrible news that actually that very much ties into the last episode I did about abusive relationships. Nothing to do with me. Just fair warning that, don't worry, it has nothing to do with me. But someone close to me, I don't really know how else to put this, and I don't feel like it's appropriate to really talk about yet because the story is just breaking, and I hate that that's even like how you say it, but it is just kind of news right now, and I don't want to really talk about it until I have a chance to talk to my online therapist, my BetterHelp therapist, and figure out how to talk about this. But that news just came in literally in the middle of recording, and I looked down at my phone and I just I don't know how to I don't know how to deal with it yet. So I just want to kind of put that thought away for a little bit, and number one, say thank you to everybody who reached out about last week's episode, or maybe not even reached out, but just listened. It was the most listened to episode in a 24-hour period time that we've done yet this season, which like, yay for numbers, but like, who cares? It was more like, oh fuck, how many people needed or wanted to hear this or sent this to a friend or a loved one, and all the stories you guys messaged me and the support you guys gave me. I was so afraid of that episode going live, and I have not seen a single negative comment. I mean, which is rare in YouTube world. And, you know, even if it's a fucking episode about, I don't know, buttholes, which I do also talk a lot about, I'll have some fucking person DM me who's got something to say about the way that I talk about buttholes, or the way that I mentioned buttholes, or the scientific researched facts behind buttholes, and not a single email or text or DM or anything came through about last week's episode. So I just want to say thank you. If you didn't listen to last week because it was triggering, or because I don't know, you just don't give a shit, well, it's fine. Hopefully this week's episode is going to be back to our regularly somewhat scheduled program of talking about some stuff that we are confidently insecure about. So the first thing that I would like to bring up and talk about, DJ Cap Slap, Jared Lucas, something that I've been feeling confidently insecure about this week is, in fact, and I'm going to do a separate episode about this, but is in fact the coronavirus. And I've been weirdly obsessed with researching and watching documentaries and shows about viruses in general, like everything from like
very true
Yeah, like our Netflix queue
our
and
Netflix
like
queue is just all virus stuff.
like
Amazon.
it ranges from like documentaries to like reenactment shows, like scare tactic-y doctor shows to like really well researched documentaries just about like how fucking crazy viruses are. And like I think one of the series just had come out on Amazon Prime that talked about viruses, and it goes super into like the SARS virus and bird flu, or I think those are the same thing. SARS, and what was the other one that was big before Corona?
I mean, HIV, but that's
No,
just a
after
virus.
that. What came after SARS but before Corona? See, this is why we need an expert to come on. Point being, they fascinate me. The idea that, number one, I'm not going to say all viruses because I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure all viruses start from an animal. That is not a confirmed fact. And like, what's up with bats, man? Why the fuck are bats so fucking dirty that carry all these viruses? And it turns out it's not because they're dirty. It's actually because their immune systems are pristine.
They got good immune systems.
Nothing can fucking take them down. And so they're actually just like carriers of it. And the other thing that I was like, had to check myself on was like, well, how come none of these ever start in America, huh? Why is it always somewhere else that these viruses start and they bring it over here? Well, it turns out that's probably racist of me or a little prejudice, which I definitely had to check. But also, it's because so many other cultures are so cultured. Like, they have so many different types of wildlife and deforestation and foods and climates. They're so much more diverse and unique and beautiful and, again, cultured than we are. That's why. It's because we're a bunch of potato white bread ass motherfucking chicken nugget with no salt eating ass boring fucking Americans, I guess. So like we should be ashamed that no viruses start here. So yeah, I'm confidently insecure about it because I obviously had all those feelings come up. First being like, oh God, like why does it seem like this huge divide between the news not really taking it that seriously, but constantly reporting on it? And why is there's this big divide between how the world is acting and what scientists and World WHO and like the FDA and all these other sciencey places, buildings are talking to us everyone's freaking out about coronavirus, and like the general population is just kind of like going about their own day. And I think that's what made me so curious about it. And then to see like what a virus can actually do, the way it killed so many millions of people. And of course, but back then, when this was before we had antibiotics, this was before we had fucking iPads and my iPhone, for sure an iPhone, way before we had an iPhone. And we had nothing to fight it. We were just like at its will. But now they're coming up with injections that are able to fight. Like right now they're trying to create a flu shot that would protect you against all influenza strains for the rest of your life. So y'all,
that's pretty badass.
Go get your flu shot. You know, I know the only horror stories you ever hear are like the scare tactics ones about like the one injection injury a year that makes it to Facebook out of your anti-vaxxer friends. Like, go get your flu shot. And even I will say, I didn't know shit about the flu shot even a few years ago. They came to BuzzFeed and they like nurses literally were in their white coats going around being like, flu shot, boink, flu shot, boink. And I was like, wait, hold on, wait. I don't know. Last time I got the flu shot, I got really sick afterwards. And they're like, that's because you were probably already carrying it or were just about to get sick. And I was like, I don't know. The timing of that sounds weird. Is that just something you're selling us? Or is that, and like would go real deep dark into it. But can confirm, get your flu shot. So I guess to wrap up this Confidently Insecure segment is I would love for you all to do your research a little bit on like maybe watch one of these little documentaries or explained on Netflix or whatever, just a little bit about viruses, because I think right now is a very interesting time where a virus is spreading when we still have all of this technology and like social media, and it really is weirdly like kind of a government conspiracy theory about like how China was downplaying about how bad it was, and then like once it spread they were like, oh, just kidding, we actually had like a lot more deaths, but we weren't able to track it because like how are we supposed to know? And this is coming out of like underdeveloped cities. So point being, I think it's also a good time to also point out, like, I think people use things like coronavirus and other viruses to show to wave the racist flag real high, of like, oh, now I get to actively avoid all Asian people despite where they actually live or who they are to you. So, if you have those people around in your life, I think by you educating yourself and watching these documentaries, and hopefully soon we'll have an expert on, I think that we have to get a couple episodes out before we do that one. But by educating yourself, I think we can kind of combat the ignorance that comes along with misinformation and the way it spreads with the viruses. So that's my confidently insecure rant for this week. It's kind of just, this is a ranty episode. Sorry, not sorry. Oh, my face, it burns. Okay. Section 2. I wanted to talk about something that is on theme with this episode, with why you're here, which is to talk about relationships and chronic pain. And I know a lot of our listeners are actually spoonies. Spoonie is the term that we call ourselves for people who are chronically ill or in pain. And so this is kind of just like a spoonie hangout sesh. But this topic I wanted to explain is something that's been catching a lot of news in the past week that involves 2 women and now a whole bunch of other motherfucking people and a bunch of threads about chronic illness that was supposed to just be about that, but it's kind of morphed into a whole bunch of other shit. So I wanted to just like briefly go over the history of it. This is the situation, the current situation, the spoonie situation between Jameela Jalil and a woman named Tracy Ergin Morrissey, which apparently Tracy Ergin Morrissey is a writer. She currently runs the nonfiction department over at Vice. She worked for Jezebel, which like, but Jameela is a actress who most of you know as Tahani from The Good Place. So the other thing, I think some of you might know her from the BBC. She was like very famous in the BBC as a host. And now that she's crossed over into American media. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I'm having fog brain from all this pain. She's been more of a target. So I don't know if you know this, but the BBC apparently has a really... the BBC, Jesus Christ, it's 9:30. The UK has a very big problem with the paparazzi and the like the TMZ sites. What's that word I'm trying to think of?
Paparazzi. That's
yeah,
right.
But like
tabloids.
God, you guys, brain fog is a fucking real thing.
It's fun. It's like Mad Libs.
Yeah, it's fun. It's like, how many words? It's a movie, 3 words. So they have a big problem there. A lot of people think that's why Meghan Markle and Prince Harry moved actually out of the country to Canada, was because they were just like, the mental health of us is way more important than making money and staying in the fancy dancy who pinky finger up family. We also just saw it recently this past week. A famous host of the BBC version of Love Island actually took her own life after the tabloids had like been relentlessly attacking her for the last umpteen years. She was actually forced to step down as the host at one point because there was some like domestic violence rumors / court case. It's all very blurry. That information is just all coming out now. And now people are kind of taking a step back and being like, how are we treating celebrities? And like, maybe we should consider them as humans and da 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 da. So Jameela comes from that world. She's been in the U.S. media for a while now. And this woman, Tracy Ergin Morrissey, has lived in, she's American. So there's been this thing going on social media where Tracy started posting stories, like I'm talking like 50 story pages about Jameela and her chronic illnesses and the issues she's had with her health over the years. And basically this chick Tracy is trying to disprove Jameela's illnesses by saying she had Munchausen's, which is, when someone Munchausen's by proxy is when someone poisons someone else to be sick so that they look sick, and it's usually
so they make themselves sick.
Yeah. So it's make themselves sick. And like, first of all, diagnosing someone, like putting that headline out there, diagnosing someone when you're a fucking writer for Vice is so dangerous. Like now, whenever you Google her name, Jameela's, that's going to come up. Like, that's not something to fuck around with. And listen, I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit. I'm going to like debate a little bit both sides, but like for the record, I'm on Jameela's side here. Jameela has been very open about her history with illness, all the way from like she was born partially deaf to being deathly allergic to peanuts as a child, to multiple concussions, to having EDS, which is I believe it's a genetic joint Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I'm so fucking that up. Ehlers-Danlos. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm so sorry, EDS listeners. Her issues with that she's battled like stomach and digestive issues, to also beating cancer twice. Multiple concussions. She was having seizures after having concussions. And she's been like very open about all of these issues. And this woman posted these stories basically taking screen grabs somewhat out of context. Some were from Jameela's stories. So I'll like get to that in a second. But she was basically trying to like discredit her by being like, how could one person have so many things? Like, is she actually sick or does she just want attention? And like at first I was like, oh shit, this evidence she's posting like actually does make it sound kind of crazy, where Jameela had been in 2 car accidents many years apart. But like on the first one, she was partially paralyzed and she had to use like a walker. And then the second one, she had like concussion syndrome or something. And this woman kind of like conflated those 2 stories, saying like, how could you have all these issues and still do what you do in Hollywood and still be an actress? Like, oh, you don't look that sick. And Jameela immediately, she's very vocal on Twitter. She immediately called this woman out. And it's like, first of all, what? Like, why are you attacking me? I've done nothing but try and be an advocate for people with mental health, body dysmorphia, all sorts of like current issues, which some people think that she's also like baiting, like she just wants a seat at the table with things like that. But she's been very vocal on Twitter, being like, what the fuck are you talking about? Your research is trash. Like, you have all these events and timelines. Like, what do you want me to do? Explain each issue I've ever had. And she did. Jameela like went through and was like, okay, let's talk about like my allergy to peanuts. I grew out of it. People can actually grow out of allergies. And then I thought of myself, because I used to be deathly allergic to jalapenos, which is a very weird allergy to have. But I went into anaphylaxis once when I was in 8th grade. And then now I actually crave spicy things. I think maybe my body was like deprived of it for so long. Anyway, this woman was like, oh yeah, you said you've been allergic to peanuts. Here's a picture of you on your Instagram talking about how much you love peanuts, or like this one snack that has peanuts in it. And it's like, this woman is actively trying to bully her into admitting that she's saying she has all of these things for attention. And if you go to news clippings of the way Jameela talks about these things, it's usually in like an interview format or like a late night show. And she's very like comedic about it. And she's very like, I wouldn't say she embellishes any stories, but she's very like animated, and she kind of like, tosses things. She uses comedy to hide like pain. And I was like, hello, that's not a new concept. The fact that it just has to do with chronic illness makes you believe her less. Like, how are we picking and choosing what we allow someone to talk about their own traumas? Like, Also, EDS is an invisible illness, the same way what I have is invisible, right? Like anyone who just saw a screenshot of today's episode might be like, I don't get it. She looks perfectly fine. But like the pain that I am having and the pain that I've had for the last 3 days has like really fucked me up and put me in such a sour position that I feel like that's a big issue here is because Jameela looks the way she does, we don't believe her. So her boyfriend actually came out and said like, hey, you guys literally think she's Tahani on The Good Place. Like you don't see the nights that she turns down these huge events because she's in so much pain, or like how she literally turns off when she comes in the door and just like collapses. Like you guys don't see that kind of stuff, and I do. And like she didn't want me to talk out about this, but I had to, and da 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 da. And here's where like my issue with this whole situation is that this woman, Tracy, started to bring in other parts of Jameela's life that had nothing to do with her physical health to disprove her. Like, for instance, she brought up the issues with her family about that her brother is a schizophrenic addict who doesn't communicate with the family, and this must run in her genes, is like crazy runs in her genes, and her mom's been really sick before, and like her mom posts pictures of her in the hospital, and it's like obviously her mom's doing it for attention, and like she learned from her mother. She also brought all of this on because Jameela came out as queer, and the situation that she came out as queer, like whatever, I'm not going to touch on that, but she came out, and this woman used that time to be like, oh, really? You have all these illnesses and you're queer? Like, do you need another thing? Really? And I'm like, isn't that like the definition of a human? Isn't that the definition of a person? Is that we are more than one single thing, and it usually is different from what you know or are used to. And I guess like the fact that she's been in the spotlight in the UK, like how does she deal with tabloids there? Maybe this is like what she's used to, is the attention. She also brought up the fact that like we can't figure out this story about the time Jameela talked about being chased by bees, where she talked about how her and the crew all saw her being chased by these bees. But then when someone interviewed Mark Ronson, who was also on set, Mark Ronson was basically like, yeah, there's like 2 bees. I don't know what she was talking about. And so then it was like, she's just a liar. Can't you see? And I was like, I found myself even being like, is she just like someone who embellishes stories? But then Jameela brought up a good point. It's like, why are we believing Mark Ronson over her? Like she says it's literally filmed. There's crew members you can talk to. Why are we so quick to believe Mark Ronson, who was like, yeah, there's 1 or 2 bees. What if there was 50 bees? You know? And I just thought that was a very interesting point that she brought up. Like, just because it's the less dramatic story doesn't mean it's the right one. And I thought all of that tied back into the same way that she talks about her illness. Now, one thing with EDS is that it's very hard to diagnose. It takes an average of 9 years to get an accurate diagnosis for any autoimmune disease. 9 years. And it usually has it's usually present in your adolescent to early adult age. So imagine that that's the time when your hormones are raging. You are kind of dramatic and becoming who you are. And then to add on an invisible illness that no one believes you, it's like no wonder people who are chronically ill or in pain are so angry or so protective or so outspoken about what they have. Is because we've been through fucking hell and back. Doctor's appointments taking up so much of our brain space. That's the thing that kills me, is I think about how much brain space I would have if I didn't have this. Like, imagine probably have a TV show. Fuck a podcast. I probably have so much more crazy shit going on in my life. I digress. Obviously, you can't see the same symptoms. You can't see what's happening with people with EDS. It's not very visible. But the only thing I agreed with Tracy on, and I don't say that with a full stop. I have a caveat of, but I think she's still kind of wrong in this, is that Jameela she goes back and forth about having cancer twice. Now, she's very confident on the one time she had breast cancer. And then the second time, there are screenshots of her tweets going back and forth between I had a cancer scare versus I beat cancer versus I had issues or whatever. So I took inventory of why did this. I took stock of why did that bother me so much. Why did the fact between her claiming to have cancer versus actually having it bother me so much? It's like, A, your mom passed of cancer, and I think that bothers me a lot because I know what that's done to you and your family and and like it brings up a little bit of anger of like, how dare someone claim they have this? And I've heard other people talk about how they've seen people who have gone through like chemo and what it does to a person. And it's like, she clearly hasn't been through that, because if you look at pictures of her over the years, she's never like, gray and skinny and ill. And then the other fact people are bringing up is that there's a difference between having like the BRCA gene, say, for breast cancer, and having cancer. And I was like, yeah, all of that's valid. All of that's legit. All of that's worrisome. But the second cancer she says she beat was cervical. And then it flashed back to what I just went through with HPV and how I had carcinoma in situ, I believe is what it was called. And carcinoma is cancer. That's like cancer cells. But I was in stage 3 versus full-blown cervical cancer. And I think that I wondered myself in these moments, like, if it had gone one step further, right, and it was full-blown cervical cancer, and the way that they treat that first, the option that I was told that I would be given was that they would cut it out. And then if your margins are clear, yay. That doesn't mean you didn't have cervical cancer. It means they were able to cut it out. And it's easier to, get rid of than, say, something like late stage breast cancer that you have to go through the whole fucking what we know cancer to be, versus what like a more treatable cancer is like, right? Like even people like kind of roll their eyes at people who are like, I had skin cancer. You're like, well, you had a mole removed once. And it's like, I don't know. Are we taking away someone's, right? And like, then what are we taking away? Someone's ability to identify that they had a worse illness than someone else, right? Like we're all suffering, I think is what I mean to say. And like, at what stage are we giving out our empathy, like playing cards, right? Like, oh, that person doesn't deserve my empathy. Like at what point are we saying, even if Jameela had Munchausen's, that's a mental illness. And are we not going to still give her a card of empathy because it's mental illness versus a physical one? And then it had me looking up something that this Tracy Reagan Morrissey woman talked about, called somatic symptom disorder, or SSD, which is characterized by an extreme focus on physical symptoms such as pain or fatigue that causes major emotional distress and problems functioning. And here's the thing that I thought about somatic symptom disorder. I thought that was, it's all in your head. But what also falls under SSD is hypochondriac, body dysmorphia, conversion disorder, which is a condition diagnosed when people have neurological symptoms that can't be traced back to a medical cause, but still very much have symptoms. So like all of these fall under an SSD, which sounds like it's in your head. Like for me, I had to really read this definition of what that is. It is characterized by extreme focus on physical symptoms such as pain or fatigue that causes major emotional distress and problems functioning, which means it doesn't mean it's not happening. You're still very much feeling like you are ill. And so it had me kind of checking my bias too of like, oh, you know, this person has only gone through this thing. But that doesn't mean that because she only had cervical cancer and it was just cut out real quick, doesn't mean that her body didn't have the reaction of, this is fucking cancer. And that stress didn't make it worse, because it does. And then I found something even crazier, which is called pseudocyesis, which is listen to fucking how crazy the body is and the mind is, which is a false belief a woman has that she is pregnant, along with outward signs of pregnancy, including expanding abdomen, feeling labor pains, nausea, fetal movement, breast changes, and your period stops. So your brain makes your body believe you're fucking pregnant, and your body does pregnant shit. That doesn't mean the person doesn't think that they're not, like, they think they're pregnant. And why wouldn't they? And so it had me clearly fully spiraling.
It sounds like it.
That any like psychosomatic disorder, again, I want to stress, is not it's all in your head diagnosis. Because I think that's obviously a big fear that a lot of chronically ill and sick people have, is that it is just in their head. But even if it fucking is, it's not like your body doesn't feel that pain. So I just wanted to say, like, for an example, a psychosomatic disorder may affect almost any part of the body, though they are usually found in systems not under voluntary control. For example, have you ever had butterflies in your tummy? Psychosomatic. Okay? You ever had sweaty palms when you're nervous? Psychosomatic. So my point being, like, everyone can relate. And just fucking back the fuck off of chronically ill or sick people, because guess what? At the end of the day, it still is a sickness or an illness, even if it is psychosomatic. It still is. And just because it's not gray skin and bag of bones illness doesn't mean that someone's not suffering. The same way clearly my face is suffering because I'm slowly starting to lose the left side of my facial feature or functions. Now, with all of that to say, there is a difference between people who do things for attention and people who talk about it to advocate for it. Because even I find myself sometimes looking at people, I follow a million spoonies on Twitter, Instagram, all my social medias, where I'll be like, God, is there anything else about this person? Why are they making it their entire identity? And I think my annoyance, especially as someone who deals with daily pain, is, are they doing it for advocacy and awareness, or does it read as attention seeky? And guess what? Even if it does, why wouldn't you want attention when you're in pain? So I'm wrong in both degrees. Either way, do I think it's morally a good thing to use sickness for attention? No. But do I want that person to be exposed and torn apart and mocked on the internet or in media? Also, no. Just something to think about. You've been sitting here listening to me rant, and I feel like your eyes have slowly been closing the entire time. Let's bring you in. Let's do the third part of the podcast, which is bringing in DJ, bringing in that cap slap, bringing in my boyfriend. He's my boyfriend. Hey. Let's talk about relationships and chronic pain.
Okay.
What the fuck did you think of all of that?
Woo! Well, that was a ride. That was certainly a journey to witness.
Who do you think's wrong? Jameela, or I even forgot her name, Tracy?
It was Tracy, the one that was bullying her.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
her
fuck
fault.
that chick, right?
I mean,
She even started a Patreon because she wants to do a more investigative story about it.
Even like she's
doing
this
it for attention.
to get the following, to get the attention behind
Pot
it.
calling the kettle, baby.
It's kind of brutal. It sounds like. I mean, from what I've heard from that, yeah.
Well, I started out.
But just the idea that she's actually making the effort to go through and try to call somebody out for being X, right?
Yeah.
Like that's very clearly trying to get views herself.
Yeah.
So I think that's just I don't know. I think it's kind of a
dick thing to do.
Yeah.
So then let's like slowly go into talking about being in a relationship with a person who's in chronic pain. And I just wanted to read out, I asked my friends who are in a spoony relationship, I said, what is a piece of advice you would want people to know getting into a relationship with someone with a chronic illness or pain? And the person who has the pain said, you have to learn to be flexible to different situations that you might not have thought of in the past. For example, your significant other may not be able to go out to eat. So instead, you enjoy ordering in and watching a movie. You can still have fun. You just got to adapt to how it's done. And then the person who's not sick said, you have to realize that normal isn't going to be the norm. Be easygoing and be able to adapt to change. Just because something seems unconventional for others doesn't mean it's unconventional for you.
Oh,
I love that.
That's great.
Because what is normal, right?
Yep.
I'm just going to say, it's Joe and Annalise. You guys know them. They were on this podcast. I've done videos with them. Annalise just came on my channel and did a makeup tutorial while talking about spooniness on my channel, so go check that out. Link in description. But I really like that because it's like, what is normal, right? Like I think like normal Valentine's Day for people you think is not falling asleep at 9:30 while your girlfriend sleeps in the other bed because her face is on fire and missing out on your plans. But what is normal, Jared?
It's a great question. That's a very I think normal I've never really had a normal life.
Oh, yeah. This might be an interesting time to talk about.
Yeah, my sister?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think we've ever talked about this.
I don't think so. I have a younger sister. She was born with cerebral palsy, born with jaundice. She's a year and a half younger than me. And the jaundice went overlooked by the nurse that turned into cerebral palsy. So now she can't walk, she can't talk, she's trapped in her body. And
wheelchair full time staff that takes care of her.
Yep. And
you guys were able to, the reason why the jaundice turned into cerebral palsy was like a matter of overnight because the nurse forgot to put her under those little
lights.
They're called bilirubin lights. I don't think anyone knows what that means, but it's like those nice warm lights when you're born.
They're blue. They
stick you under so your skin turns back to normal.
Yeah, it's just to get the toxins out, and it just was overlooked.
So it was like severe brain damage
just
overnight.
A mistake. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, what that meant was that everything, basically from that point on, the family revolved around her needs, and that's something that for me I've recognized about my own upbringing is that I had this core belief that my needs didn't matter and that everything, Krista came first. And
because she did, right?
Yeah. I mean, she really physically and all the activities that we did made sure it was handicap accessible. And, everyone who has a someone who's handicapped in their life knows, how it goes. So
is it cerebral palsy is not the same thing that, oh God, I'm going to sound like an idiot. Whatever. It's my podcast about being an idiot. Not the same thing that genius guy had.
No, Stephen Hawking.
He did have cerebral palsy?
Yeah.
But he grew into his? That sounds wrong.
Well, I think, I think he had I think it was a neurodegenerative disease of some sort, but
the fact that we don't know what Stephen Hawking had.
Yeah, cerebral palsy is just I should know more about this, honestly, but the what it does to the body.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that there's a lot of things that could cause it, but that's like the
Oh, okay. I know Walter White Jr. had it, a
Right.
very mild case in Breaking Bad. That was
Right.
like the first time people really saw it in media. That wasn't like, it wasn't the center of attention.
Right.
You know, I think we all would have been better off if in our childhoods we had access to computers so that we could visit
Could just Google it.
betterhelp.com.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking.
BetterHelp.
Or just go to betterhelp.com.
Is an app that in a website that you can use for online counseling that is always there for you. I literally messaged my therapist while we were like trying to re-record this episode, and she's amazing. I just love her so much because it's a safe and private online environment. It's so convenient, right? Because you can do it whenever, wherever. Where you're taking a deuce, okay? You're on the plane. You get a little Wi-Fi. You can do it on the plane.
Right on the plane.
You can do it in class. I don't recommend, but you sure could if you wanted to schedule it, and you could text all the way. You could even video if you got balls like that. You can get your own time and at your own pace is the most important thing.
You telling me I can text a therapist?
Oh, baby.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Jared has his own in-person therapist, so we haven't got him there yet. But the goal is to transition, that's another thing it's great for. Is like if you don't feel like you need weekly therapy either. I mean, they certainly do. I talk to her daily most times.
That's great.
But it's nice to kind of like transition into your own home and your own environment. They have licensed professional counselors who are specialized in depression, stress, anxiety, relationships, sleeping trauma, not sleeping trauma, sleeping/trauma. Although I'm sure sleeping trauma they also cover. Anger, family conflicts. Hey, that would have been good for you. LGBT matters. Hey, would have been good for me. Grief. Hey, good for you. Self-esteem. Hey, good for me. Anything you share is confidential. Don't forget, if you're not happy with your counselor for any reason, you can request a new one at any time. I talk to my therapist a lot about my chronic pain, which is why I just spoke like that.
So you can just hot swap a therapist out whenever you want?
Hot swap.
Wow.
I would never trade mine.
But you could.
But I could.
That's
which
cool.
like gives me all the power. It's secure. It's convenient. It's professional. It's affordable. It's not a crisis line, but financial aid is available for those who qualified. Best of all, it's truly an affordable option. Confidently Insecure listeners get 10% off your first month with discount code CI. So why not? Get started today.
CI,
Go to
that's so easy.
betterhelp.com/CI. Simply fill out a questionnaire to help them assess your needs and get matched with your counselor that you'll love. That's betterhelp.com/CI.
CI. Wow.
So back to your childhood trauma. You grew up thinking your needs didn't matter, but you grew up with someone that needed a lot of help.
Yes.
You didn't necessarily give the primary care because that was your mom's job, but you saw what it was like to literally be with someone who needed help 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And we like joke in our weird, like fucked up little way is that like that kind of prepped you for this relationship is that like the universe did its like bippity boppity boop Cinderella thing where it was like, I guess I'm the pumpkin in this situation or something. Or maybe I'm the rat named Gus Gus who I really like. Point being is you bippity boppity booped and it was like, you already have all these tools and compassion and it was so normal for you that this relationship was, I don't want to say easy because I know it's not with all my shit, but it was like a perfect match.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely uniquely qualified to be.
That's a great interview answer.
I am uniquely qualified for this position. And no, I truly do like, I love being with you. And if this is like, I think I'm not normal either.
No
so
one's
I'm
normal.
not meant to be in a normal relationship. Yeah. Like this is normal for me.
Yeah. And again, like normal is what you see on Instagram and Netflix. P.S. I still love you or whatever the fuck that movie is called. Like that's what everyone thinks relationships and life is supposed to be like. And it's not. And what are normal relationships? Because I think the number one question that I always get asked in regard to chronic pain is with dating. And like, how do you date with chronic pain? And I think there's two ways to look at that, physically and emotionally. And for me, it's my personality type and my love language that I can't help but talk about it because that's what I've learned. And so for me, it's like, when do you tell them? For me, I think it was like the first date, right? The first time we actually got to hang out.
Yeah.
And I use a lot of comedy to joke about it. And in hindsight, like, maybe that was the best way to do it. Maybe it wasn't. But we were pretty drunk the whole time we were dating for like the first 3 months. So I don't even know if you really remember that conversation.
No, I do. I remember it was at a bar. It was right by the bar and you were like towards the wall. And I remember you saying like you couldn't like feel your face.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just like, okay.
It was kind of funny too that we were like one-upping each other. You were like, "Yeah, I have a sister that has cerebral palsy." I was like, "Oh man, I have an incurable chronic illness." And you're like, "Yeah, my mom died when I was a freshman in college." I was like, "Yeah, all right, you got it." Like, we just got all of our stuff out on the table very early, and I think that like if someone you're romantically interested in shies away from the topic, like if you take the bold step to say what you've got or what you're dealing with or what you're fighting up against and they retreat, it's not so much about their answer as much as how it makes you feel. So like if they retreat and you're kind of like, oh God, like this is kind of gonna fuck, like the shit, I shouldn't have said that, or like, oh man, this is going to be a mess. Like, they're never going to like me. I think that like kind of says more about how you feel about it than them still. Cause I think the natural reaction is either to, if you're like super inquisitive, is to be like, oh my God, tell me more. But if you're like, oh fuck, like, oh my God, that seems like.
Well, it's also like it's on, it's not like it's on the person too of like, who's receiving the news, like they have their own stuff that they're dealing with in their own life. So it's like if they're retreating, like I wouldn't
give them a
blame
chance.
Yourself.
Yeah, but don't blame yourself. Oh
yeah.
God, no. If you feel like you're blaming yourself, or if you feel like they're blaming you, run. Run the other way. If they are blaming you or not believing you is a big one. Because guess what? You already have to waste all your fucking time convincing doctors, convincing classmates, convincing friends, convincing your parents that you feel this way. The last thing I need, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't sometimes feel like this, is convincing you how much pain I'm in sometimes.
It's really hard for me to be able to show you that I'm there and understanding because I can't feel your pain and you know that I can't feel your pain. And I'm also just in general, like I've gotten desensitized to situations with like high stress around it, with pain and my sister crying all the time and like
not knowing what was wrong with her.
Yeah. I've developed a very calm demeanor. So it's really hard to show you that like I want to be there for you in every way I possibly can.
I'm sure it's also like, what can you fucking do is also another thing that I get. Like people's significant others will DM me saying like, I believe my partner, I love my partner, but I truly don't know what the fuck I can do. When someone's in this much pain daily, and I tell Jared this all the time, like we talk about this all the time, is like, it is hard for people who don't experience chronic illness or pain. For their brains, it doesn't really have to do with them. It's like for their brains cannot comprehend what it's like to be in pain all the time. You just can't until you have it and your body gets used to it. And I don't mean gets used to it like you don't feel it anymore. Your body just gets used to tolerating life at that level of pain. And it fucking sucks because you would never wish that upon anyone. And I tell Jared that all the time. I'm like, I wish you could feel this for like a minute, but I also would never wish that upon my worst enemy because I don't want anyone I care about to feel this way. But I definitely like have those thoughts where here's my thought process when something happens, when I feel like a flare or worse than usual. I'm in a lot of pain right now. Oh my God, I'm mad I'm in a lot of pain right now because it's not convenient. It's never convenient. I'm pissed that this happened to me. I'm pissed that this is my life. I'm pissed that this is what I have to deal with. Now I need Jared to know because it's going to affect my mood because I've got all this anger and pissiness rather than just being like, oh, hey, look there, I noticed it. Like meditation right now is not working. How do I tell Jared okay, I should just say like my face hurts right now, or like my neck hurts, or my ear hurts, my jaw hurts. Like, how can I be specific so that he can then react in a way that's like, oh, it's the shoulder area. Like, I know sometimes she likes it when I do massage. Like, how can I communicate this information to Jared where it's helpful to him and not just me complaining about it? And then sometimes I'm like, I just need him to understand and see how it's already like angry. It's like, I haven't even told you that I'm in pain, and I'm already like, I just need him to understand that right now I'm in a lot of fucking pain, and I just need him to understand that. And it's like, how does someone understand that? How does someone do that when you physically, like, sometimes I even have a hard time explaining how it hurts when it just hurts. And it's like this, how does it feel? Like it does every day: burning, stinging, numb, bee stings, ant bite. Like, what is me saying I'm in pain gonna do in this moment? How's it gonna help? So I go through that whole thought process. And then usually I'll decide to say like, oh, my face hurts. And I say it in that tone. Or I'll be like, I need you to hear me. My face hurts. And then it's just about like hoping you react in a way that pleases me, gives me comfort in that moment. Because sometimes it's like, I need you to massage me and I need your physical strength, because I physically don't have the strength right now. But I'm walking around, so it's like I'm fine, right? Like if I was really in that much pain, wouldn't I be on the floor? And then sometimes it's just, I need your empathy and not pity. And like, what's funny about empathy is I feel like we've gone through a lot of therapy talking about the way you respond to empathy because of the way you grew up, where that now sometimes I feel like what you say back to me is a learned response of like, that must be really hard right now. I know. I see you. I hear you. I feel you. And I'm like, you're just saying that because that's what we've learned in therapy to say. Like, then it's like, it's never going to be what I want it to be. And it changes every time. And how is that fair to you? Do you hear how emotional I am? Like, it's just exhaustive to think about the other person when I'm like fucking want to crawl out of my own face. I've told Jared, like, I've thought many times about taking a hammer and just completely crushing my own skull on the side of it. Like, that sounds psychotic, right? But how do you get to a place with your partner where you can say stuff like that without freaking them out? You have to be a pretty strong dude to handle.
I think it's reasonable. It's a reasonable, like, smashing your head against something. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, if it hurts that bad,
Yeah.
like, that's a pretty normal. I can see that.
I think another thing I think I'd be interested in hearing is like, how do you feel when I say, because it happens all the time, is when I go like, my face hurts. Like, how do you feel when you hear that?
I feel frustrated. I feel because I can't do, like, it's like, just in the same way that like it runs through all these things. Like my go-to way that I used to function was, how can I fix this?
Yeah.
And like everything, like it's just very formative in my whole existence of like, is there a problem? Great, I'm gonna fix it. I'm an engineer. I can figure out a way to do this, instead of sitting with it and actually being like empathetic with your pain. That was like my old response. And so
we got rid of that. We left her outside in the cold rain.
Yeah, I still try to be helpful when needed, but now when I hear that you're in pain, it makes me feel like my chest tightens up, and like I want to be able to do something, but I know I can't. And it's hard to, I mean, I'm not very good at describing my emotions, but that's probably closest I can think of, is just my chest tightening up.
Yeah. I think everyone's biggest fear is that they're going to, even if you're a listener who doesn't have chronic pain, what if you found your dream person and then like the first thing they say is like, I have a chronic incurable illness, and you're like, oh fuck, never mind. Like, I think everyone's fear is that they're going to be on the end of one of that like they're either going to have to be like, you're too much, this disease is too much, or this illness is too much, or that someone is going to tell you that. And like one of my biggest triggers, I think we learned a long time ago, was that the being called too much is a big trigger for me, because kind of like tying this back to Jameela, like that's what I've been told my whole life is like, you're so dramatic, you're so attention seeking, you're so loud. And like, I always saw that those as like really great things. Like I was like, that's what makes me awesome. And then to hear that people don't like that, I was like, well, that's your fucking problem, not my problem. But like, I think it's worth reminding people of something you said, where it's like everyone has their thing. Like, if it's not going to be your chronic illness or chronic pain that's present every day, it's something else in life. And in a way, I feel like we cut through so much bullshit about life when we're like, we have this thing on our plate, like so much other kind of shit, just petty shit doesn't matter. Like, I can't do petty shit and be in pain. And like, in a weird way, like, I recognized Jared's pain so familiarly.
My pain was so familiar to you that
I want to get this right. So familiar.
I don't think that's a word.
I think I'm adding like an IRI. Familiarly. Whatever. Okay, Jared's pain was so familiar
to you.
To me. And I think my pain was so familiar to you that, dude, we just matched. Even my acupuncturist, when we were leaving tonight, he was like, he stopped us. It had nothing to do with what we were talking about. And he was like, I think y'all's, well, he didn't say y'all. He's not from the South. But he was like, I think y'all's chi is really complimentary of each other. Y'all's chi really flows nicely. No, he said Jared's like water, which is like, oh, what a beautiful visual. Fuck me in the ass. My face is giving out. Such a beautiful visualization, especially for someone like me who has chronic pain. And like, sometimes I wish I could just fucking squeeze water through it. That's a nice visual. I'm going to remember that sometimes. And here's the thing that I will say is, it used to annoy me to no end when people would give unsolicited medical advice. And I think I snapped very quickly and easily to you if you were ever to say something like, you just need to do this right now. It's like the same thing as when I would be having a panic attack and I'd be like, that's not helpful. Don't tell me what I need. Make gentle suggestions. And so I think some like advice I could offer people is like, even if it's really coming from a place of love, that the way you deliver your suggestions is very vital. Like, Jared knows when he's suggesting we try meditation is not going to work. He knows when I'm in a place of like, no, don't even fucking say it because it's going to piss me off. Even if before I've done it and it's helped wildly and I've been like, oh my God, that was so amazing. He's not going to go, remember last time when that, it's like he knows every time is different. And even if it helped me before, it may not help this time. And so don't get stuck in a routine, I guess I would say, to significant others of like doling out the same advice, because it's not always going to work. And it's going to be frustrating when it doesn't work. And you're going to make the person resent the thing that could be helpful if you're so sure of something, I think. Again, like, even if it's coming from a place of love, would you say?
Yeah, and just sit with the person.
Yeah.
And just be there.
Yeah. And like, I get sometimes when I'm really in a lot of pain, or this even is like applicable to panic attacks, or like when I get those bad migraines, I'm not who I am. I'm a lot a bit cuntier. I'm a lot more irritable, and like, I can't sit still, and I need to stand, I need to sit, I need to throw up, I need to shit, I need water, I don't need water, I need a heating pad. And it's like, in those moments, the idea of treating Jared like a nurse does not feel good. And if he wasn't there, I would have to do all those things on my own. And so I think it's also about establishing a degree of like how much another person can help you. Like maybe if you or your partner needs a boundary to be like, hey, when you're in this specific type of flare, no matter how bad it is, like I know that I'm going to be hurtful rather than helpful here. And like, I'm not going to be able to get you like 6 different temperatures of washcloths and Pedialyte and regular water and massage you and find your pills and call your mom on FaceTime so you can talk to her. And it's like, yes, I would be doing all of those things myself if you weren't there, but having you there, I'm like, well, if this person's able and willing, like, why? I know it's like you want to help. Like that makes you feel good as being able to help. Now, for some people, that's not the truth. For some people, that does not make people feel good. Their communication style and love language is not, how can I help? And so for those people, I would say, like, you need to know at what point, like, can your partner say in an angry voice, please just get me the fucking heating pad without you, with you knowing that it has nothing to do with you.
I think that's a very tough thing as well. It's like in the moment, like knowing and being mindful of the fact that the anger in your voice is not because of me.
Oh my God. It's like
that it's the
superpower for you that you were able to do that.
Yeah. It's definitely a tricky thing to not embody that or take that and like think that it's, but like to actually know that the pain is
causing
speaking
it
right now.
Totally.
So
like if you even like blink the wrong way when you're talking to me, I'm like, what did you mean by that? Like what about me?
It's just definitely tricky.
And it's like, I can be fully screaming my head off. Like, I need this. Like, please help me. Why don't you understand? And you are just so willing and able at all degrees. And you never take anything personally that has to do with my pain. And like, I get frustrated. My fuse is very short. And like, you know, we are actually flying to the University of Pennsylvania, UPenn, in like a week and a half to go visit these new doctors. And my mom and dad are going to fly out from Florida to meet us there. And we're going to like do all these appointments and And it wasn't even like a question whether you were coming with me. But I always feel like I have to say, like, do you want to come with me to this thing? Like, I know if I ask you, it's not because I'm like, it's not because I don't need you there. It's like I need you. The same way like I asked you to come to my root canal last week, and thank God I fucking did. Because guess what? Like I would have been able to do it without you.
Would not have been fun.
Would not have been fun. And we talked about this at Valentine's Day because I said I always feel bad when I do that because I'm like, you didn't sign up for going to sit at hour-long appointments and holding a girl's hand in a dentist's office overlooking Beverly Hills at 7:30 in the fucking morning. Like you didn't sign up for that. But then at Valentine's Day, we were talking about how, like, when I was high on laughing gas, what I realized when I was high on laughing gas is I was shitting on myself for feeling bad in my head on laughing gas. I was like, you dumb bitch. Like, you don't deserve him. You shouldn't ask him to do things like this. You shouldn't, like, he doesn't want to do this. I'm like, you know, assuming and catastrophizing. And then I went out one step further, like, no, he loves you. He wants to be here with you. And then I went out one step further and was like, you know, God, what's the word I'm looking for? I just keep thinking of the word clan, and it's not clan. Tribes. Tribes. Like, tribes have been shown that the more, like, tribes that are completely disconnected from the modern world have shown that the happiest people in the tribe are the people that have the most connections with the most people. And then I zoomed out even further and I was like, okay, what is human connection? Like, what is peace and war and love? And then again, I'm super high on laughing gas. And then zoomed out even further and I got all the way to the Big Bang Theory. What created the entire universe if it wasn't a god? What really created this whole world was that two fucking cells wanted to be connected, or two fucking meteors, or two fucking objects, or whatever it was. Two things had to have connected to create something, right? And so all this was being said at Valentine's Day. I'm sober, by the way. I wasn't when I thought of this, but on Valentine's Day, I was telling Jared, like, all of that on laughing gas came all the way back down to, like, this is what life is. This is umami. Sorry, that's an inside joke between me and Jared. But, like, this is what life is about connection. And whether it be connection through strength or sadness and love and loss and grief, whatever it is, like, that is what fucking life is about, is those moments of connection. Because if you were to just live a life all by yourself, like, yeah, I joke, like, that would be the dream, right? But, like, truly, genuinely is, like, I feel like we are closer and stronger because of the harder things we've gone through.
Yeah.
And this is not something you may have signed up for, but like I said, the universe found a way to get us together. And, like, we've already decided that we're going to be together forever. So, like, how do we absolutely find a way to make the best of those awful situations? Because they're there every day it's just like, of what degree am I functioning at? And, you know, how do we give each other gratitude? Like, how am I able to say thank you for essentially, you know, the way my body wants to say the sentence is for putting up with me, for dealing with me, for, like, going through this when you don't have to. You could totally walk away and this could totally not be your life. And then I feel like the opposite of that, and maybe I'm speaking for you, is, like, there are so many other things that this life with me is.
Yes.
That
it's like, it's kind of like golf, where it's like,
yeah,
it's like when you're in pain, it's like trying to, like, you know, hitting balls and everything going in the water and everything being, like, shitty and all the time. But that's not that's part of the game, but it's not, like, the whole game. I mean, the feeling of getting that hole in one, and, like, the feeling of sinking a putt and like, all of these other things are so smooth drives. Yeah. I mean, like, they're so much more impactful and better when you do have those shitty balance, those other things going on. So I feel like, if anything, it ramps up the quality of the experience of life to a point where you know the lows, and so you can actually reach highs that are even higher.
I feel like that was the first metaphor that I was, like, super.
You're on board with it?
Like, understood it. Like, it came
Nice.
from my own brain.
Nice.
And, you know, I think, like, to that point of thinking of it in there are more good, or at least, like, the goods outweigh the bad situation is, like, I know, at least for me, I feel this, so I can only imagine that you must too, is that sometimes when it's so many days in a row of bad pain days, or so many days of me talking about this, or so many appointments, or, like, so much of our life is consumed by my illness, it can be tough to be like, well, the good outweighs the bad, when it's like, well, no, now there's so much bad stuff happening that it's hard. Like, I understand why it's easy to not feel like this is worth it. I could see why. And I wish I had, like, more helpful advice for a moment like that, but I always talk about the dope jar that I have, like, the good things jar, where anytime anything good happens in my life, whether it be, like, I had a really fucking good croissant, I write it down, I write a little detail, and I put it in this jar, and when things feel tough, I look at it, and whether it be, like, you sold a show to E, or you had a really good croissant, it brings back that, like, feeling. Like, make that for your relationship, whether it be, like, they looked really nice this morning when the sun was hitting their eyelashes a particular way. Or, you know, they just bought me a new car and I love that. Like, whatever it be, like, write down these little things or big things or just moments that give you that, like, umami feeling. And that way, when things do feel tough, you'll remember why you're with this person. And cool. I think you'd kind of have to be a little bit of a psychopath to see someone going through something so awful and be like, why am I with this? But guess what? Like, I've been there. I've been on the days where, like, things are so bad that I'm just like, just leave. Why would you stay with somebody like me? Just go.
It's like, I mean, you can hit a lot of bad golf shots.
Here we go. Yes.
We're still back on that golf thing.
I love it.
Like it's like one really good shot can make up for a lot of very bad shots. And it's take that as abstract as possible. Like these good moments with you are worth so much more and are able to you can't measure them in the same like time frame. Like one good shot is worth 1,000 bad shots. You know, and even if it's longer periods of time.
I'm even thinking of just like when people are like starting to date, like we're 2 years into it now of like having a pretty good handle on it, and you haven't even seen me at my worst. Like I still shout out to my ex-boyfriends, especially particularly one, you know who you are, that had to take me to the emergency rooms and stuff. But like, especially even if someone looks disabled or chronically ill, like what our interpretation of that person, like what our biases and agenda in our brain puts on that person without actually knowing them. Like I would encourage people to look beyond like whatever physical ability someone has and really get to know the person. And like anyone that is looks physically, I hate the word disabled. I don't know. People feel weird. Not able. I don't know.
Differently abled.
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you guys already know this, that you are so multifaceted and that like society just picks up on physical traits first. But, you know, for people that are bedridden a lot or not able to like normally date, and I say normally, like everything isn't like To All the Boys I've Loved. Dating apps, Facebook groups, fucking there are ways to date and find love and find people, and don't give up, I'd say. It took me a long time to find somebody that, you know, loves me the way you do.
Oh.
I love you.
I love you.
Fuck. Okay, we went long, and I said this was going to be a quick one, and my face hurts so bad. And you can't see this if you're only listening, but I've fully gone into mashed potato mode. I've slid all the way down the couch.
You just slid.
I lost my chin and neck. I'm just fully formed into an amoeba, and whew. Thank you for this episode, my love. Guys, don't forget my confidence. Use betterhelp.com/CI. Also, rate this on iTunes. Also, we have live shows coming up. I can't wait to announce the dates, but I think the only one that I know for certain is in London, June 8th.
Woo!
The tickets are going to go out soon. Please, I have no energy. Please, tell people and bring your friends. Bring your friends. There will be fun prizes and giveaways and special guests. I promise it's going to be a good show, guys.
It's going to be really good.
I have nothing left. These last 3 days have been really tough. My face hurts. I got to go to bed. Bring stuff up on this. I love you.
I love you.
Okay.
I'll help you put this in.
Okay. I love you, confidants. I'll see you next week.
Bye.